All right, guys, new day, new video, back on the Nomad. And I left off by getting the rocker all cut out, needing to get a couple more little pieces cut out that were still in the way. So I went ahead and got that pedestal out, which I'll show you how I did that in just a second. And then you got to get this piece out of the way, which isn't a big deal. And then the original wire loom piece for the door. So basically, if you remove that long piece there, it gets you in to be able to drill out these 5 spot welds. And then there's a weld right along there. And then that allows you to pretty much pull that pedestal out. Now, if your car is a little bit more solid, the bottom part of the pedestal will be spot welded to the floor. So a little bit easier for me since it was already rotted out. And then this took a very long time, but I got the top side of the old rocker out that was still spot welded to the lower A-pillar here. Now this thing's just mocked up right now because I need to get measurements. So there's like the factory style seam deal. So basically there's still a little piece on the inside I have to get out, which is why the rocker is just a little crooked. You can see that piece of metal right up there. So I basically just got to get that out, but I'm using this for measurements right now to see how well it matches up with this side over here, since this is still intact. So far I got it like within 1/8 of an inch, so it's probably good enough as far as just because the stamping on these new rockers aren't as good as the old ones. But I do have a little bit of wiggle room to bring that rocker towards the front, so it actually should be perfect once I bring it forward about 1/8 of an inch. So in all reality, it's probably exactly the same. But definitely, if you're ever doing this, do one side at a time. Don't go cutting both out, because as you can tell, this rocker is good enough. And really, you know, it's intact pretty well to be able to use as a visual for your other side to get measurements, see how it's spot welded together and all that stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up getting this side all dialed in. Gonna pop that rocker back out, get that spot cleaned up so we can actually get that rocker pulled up just a little bit. And that way I know it's fitting good. And then after I do that, what we're gonna do is take the lower A-pillar here and section it out and make my own little piece there. And it's hard to see, but I will do the same for the lower B-pillar. So we'll go ahead and get on that, and we should be ready to start spot welding this thing in. Okay, guys, starting on this, I kind of come up here above this pitting where the metal's a lot better. And you can tell there's kind of a dip in it. So I got the same gauge sheet metal as the factory uses, which this I think is 20. So basically, if you look at how this is made, kind of comes straight down this side, and this side kind of tapers in a little bit. So I've got my measurement from where I wanted to come up here for the patch, measured from this line down to the very end, and then measured my width. So I kind of brought like a little straight edge down here, measured my width, and then I even got a little bit of a taper there. So if you look, follows that edge perfectly. So we're gonna go stomp shear this thing out, and then it should be ready to cut this portion out. Now, a lot of people may make this as one piece, the sides, top and bottom, and contour that. A little too complex. I could probably do it, but for me, I'll make the top piece first. And this 20 gauge is really malleable. You can do whatever you want with it, bending it, and so it'll be real simple. But I'll do the first top side here, get it tacked in, and then I'll make my side piece and my other side piece. And then I will then in turn weld those guys on, and where I weld them on the edge, I'll use the 90 degree, which is this guy here with our 36 pad, and run it along the edge to give me my radius, and it'll should look nice and fresh after that. So like I said, we're gonna go cut this thing out, and then I'll show you guys the process on what I just talked about.
Where do holiday items take over every aisle? Right now, you'll save big on everything you need for the holiday season. Get up to 50% off select Greenlit Christmas trees and holiday living LED string lights. Plus, list with up to 50% off select.
Okay, went ahead and tacked it in. As you can see, I got the same contour as the lower A-pillar. Now, this thing may not be sitting at the right angle just yet, but this stuff is obviously super malleable, so that'll be really simple to take care of. So now we're pretty much ready to make the side piece here and the side piece on the inside as well. But I'll leave this tacked in just for now. Just, you know, worst case scenario, if I would have to cut it back apart, it's just a few little tacks there. So what I'll probably do before I make my little side pieces is lay the rocker up there and see what I need to do with this to get it to lay flat on the rocker itself, and then put a few holes to spot weld it to the top of the rocker itself. Okay, this is why you always mock it up and also make your piece a little bit bigger than need be. That's just a little freehand mark, but as you can see, I have some overlap there because these these reproduction rockers aren't exactly the same. So I got a little step made in it, and I'll trim that along that line to clean that up. Then we should be ready to make our side pieces. And this piece that I'm just making will kind of come up a little bit to allow the rocker to come up about another 1/8 of an inch of seat where it's supposed to. Okay, went ahead and got my side pieces made, which, you know, they're just those little triangular pieces. I'm going to shave the bottom of that a little bit to line it up with that. But got my little step in it right there, as you can see. And got it all welded in and smoothed out. Got my edges radiused. So basically we'll just shape this here, and I think the other side's okay. Already did the other side, so we're good there. And that little hole is actually where the inner piece meets the outer. It's like a factory little space there. So now we got that dialed in. It fits around this portion of the rocker. I'm ready to move back here and get this section knocked out. So looks like I'll have to do a little bit of work right here, and then obviously from probably right in here down. So I don't know, might go right above the step. I'm not sure. That's just a lot of pitting, which means that metal's probably pretty thin, but it feels okay. So I'll make that assessment here and decide if I'm going to cut some out of the new panel or use what I got here. So I'll get back with you on that, and we'll see how we want to tackle that job. Okay, I did end up going just above all the cancer here. You can see all the bad pitting, but also when this thing comes down, you can see that step, and that step kind of tapers off. It's a little wider than it is down here. You can actually kind of see it come downward at an angle. Starts further from here and ends a little further over here. And same with this one, it's kind of like a tight V. So basically I took this piece and did the same thing. I mimicked that tight V, and then I kept using this as my template to get this. So now we got an identical piece to weld in for our B-pillar. And then after I get this sucker tacked in, we're gonna tackle this, which I believe I'll probably just cut a piece out of the new panel, section it over, and then come in right down in here, section that little piece in, clean all that up, and we'll be fresh and ready for the rocker. All right, guys, checking back in. Ended up making a little bit of progress here. I didn't film. Don't have a good area to set my phone up because I forgot my tripod. But anyway, I'll show you this. Left off after we got this piece made. Turned out perfect. Section this little area in. And then now I got the rocker all mocked up. And I measured basically from the drip rail. Not basically. I did, hooked onto the drip rail, measured dead center down to the rocker, and I got the exact same measurement on each side. and the measurement out to the fender bolt is the same on each side. So basically what I can do now is go through and fully weld this thing in. Getting a little ahead of myself, but I figured I'd explain this. I may have to cut a little seam in here to knock this down, but I'm going to seam weld all down through here and stop because this underneath side is rotten. And if you know anything about Nomads, this radius here is different than a 55 Chevy. So I'm going to cut along this radius all the way back and use as much of this rocker lower portion I can to section in there. And that'll be a later portion of this video potentially, maybe the one after this one, not too sure. But anyway, once I section this in and spot weld it, you'll have this gap right here, which is kind of like the factory lead seam. And then up front, I'm going to knock these down a little bit, plug weld these in, smooth those out. You kind of have your factory seam there, and then finish weld those in, which the factory rocker kind of went up a tad higher. So this one doesn't fit as well as what the factories did, but I can make it work. That's no big deal. I can kind of seam weld along the bottom, fill those old spot weld holes in, no big deal. I'll show you when I'm finished up. But I may try to set my phone up here for a little time lapse getting this thing welded in. Just saw the little time lapse there, getting this thing all squared away. So figured I'd show it to you. Haven't smoothed anything out yet, of course. There's the rosette welds, kind of like factory spot welds, and then seamed all that together. So this is the area you would use some what we would call Duraglass instead of lead, and fill that little factory divvy there. And then if you look down, these are perfectly level. And then got the rosette welds up front here, and a few down the side, and a little seam there. We got the flange knocked up front. So there it is. So that'll end off this this portion of the rockers, and I'm going to jump over on the driver's side first thing tomorrow. So hopefully that side goes a little quicker, knowing what I've learned from this side. I know I've done a set of these before, but every car is a little bit different. So hopefully learning what I learned on this side, I can carry it over there and knock that one out. Hopefully, you know, twice as fast anyway. So we'll see. So we'll pick up starting on that driver's side. All right, guys, welcome back to a new day and a new rocker. And getting on this driver's side over here. And I went ahead and got the lead all melted out so I can see my factory seam. Got a little pinhole right here on the lower quarter, which isn't a big deal. I can fix that later on. The lower B pillar isn't as bad on this side, but I think I'm gonna have to do almost the same thing on this one by looking how pitted it is. And then the lower A pillar is in way better shape. So I'll probably only have to do from about right here back, maybe, not sure yet. But anyway, went ahead and got that all cleaned up so I can see what's what in there. So basically right now, I'm gonna go ahead and start getting some measurements, and then we're basically start drilling some spot welds and getting this old rocker the heck out of here so we can start on the new one. And as for that pedestal that I cut out on the other side, I went ahead and removed this guy here. As you can see, I still got to remove the vent in there. But you can see what I was talking about. The other side, this was rotted off. So basically spot welds in this section here, like what I showed you I cut out. And then here's that lower portion that actually mates to the floor. So I may end up cutting this out to get it out of my way. But now that I got this stuff done, I'll probably jump on getting that vent out and going ahead and getting this pedestal out of my way, then jumping back over to the rocker panel itself. Okay guys, had a pretty good time lapse going there getting that driver's side pedestal out, but for some odd reason it just stopped recording on me. So figured I'd show you kind of what I got going on here. Here's the pedestal itself. A little tweaked and bent up from popping it out, but basically in the clip prior I showed you how to kind of spot your spot welds, pun intended. There they all are. Then you always got one on that inside flat surface. And then you got a seam weld right there you got to cut through. That length there. And then there are normally, as you can see, couple spot welds along that lip, but they were pretty much rusted and gone. I was able to pry the thing apart. But there it is. There's some of the old floor attached to it. Anyway, I kind of twisted up the flange a little bit right there, but I can just hammer this back straight. So there it is there. So I can get that all cleaned up and purdied up and put some rust prohibitor on it before we weld the new piece in. So obviously all this stuff will be new when I get the rocker in. And once the rocker's done, I may go ahead and tackle this toe board section. Just a little replacement patch there, nothing too major. And then after that, we'll move on to the quarter panel stuff, but that I think will be an own video in itself, doing both those sides. But anyway, now we're on to getting the spot welds drilled out on this rocker panel. So once we get started on that, I'll probably hit you with a time lapse and then check back in as I'm getting further along with it. All right, so I got the thing all tacked in place. That way I can fit the new rocker up there, make sure my width is okay and everything's matching up. And when it does, then I can go ahead and finish weld this thing out, smooth it all out like we did on the other side, and then we'll move on back to this guy. And this side ended up being worse than the other. So got this all cut out. Time to make my piece. Had to drill a spot weld out there, so I'm gonna fill that in and make my little piece again. And then we should be ready to pretty much put the new rocker in, I believe. Already did me a test fit. Everything fits up front there, so that's ready to be finished welded. And then just got to get to making this stuff so I can finish weld it in. All right, got this side all finished up. Pretty excited, especially for recreating all of this. It turned out pretty good. And then just did some minor stitch welds along there, kind of similar to the factory. And then I just got to knock this flange up a little bit to meet the other one. But overall, it's pretty good. Lines up pretty well. I'm not too upset with it. And obviously, we'll get some body work done when that time comes. But for now, it's just going to stay in this stage. So I'm pretty much ready to move on to these lower quarters. That'll probably be, I'm not sure. Got to hop back on the Nova. We finally got parts for it, so not sure when I'll get back to these. So I think that's why I'm going to go ahead and end this video off here, getting both rockers done. So I'm pretty stoked. That's a pretty big transformation. So, and I think that makes it to where I can probably remove that bracing inside the car. But I'll probably leave it in maybe until I get these lower quarters done. I don't know, don't really need it, so we'll see. But that's for another video. So we're gonna leave you off here with these both the rockers getting knocked out. So hopefully this next video you see on the Nomad, we'll be getting these lower quarter sections done and getting the floor in this thing. So that's gonna be pretty huge. So look forward to that. I'm pretty stoked. Hope you guys are stoked. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this one. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think of this thing, and we'll see you in the next video.